The shotgun blast echoed across the cornfields like a thunderclap from hell, shattering the summer silence and my last shred of faith in family. I stood frozen in the doorway of the old barn, the metallic tang of gunpowder mixing with the earthy rot of hay bales, as Dad's voice cracked through the haze. "Jordan, get out. You're no son of mine, not after what I saw." And just like that, with the barrel still smoking in Simon's trembling hands, my brother fired the second shot. Not at me, but straight into the heart of everything we'd built together. That was the day the Harlan feed and supply empire cracked wide open. But it wasn't the rabbit Simon was pretending to hunt. It was me he was aiming to erase. I'd come home early from the city, backpack slung over one shoulder, dreaming of patching things up after months of radio silence. Instead, I walked into the barn to find Simon tangled in a heap of limbs with Tommy Ruiz, the ranch hand we'd all grown up chasing shadows with. Their shirts half unbuttoned, lips locked in a frantic kiss that spoke of secrets long buried under layers of denial and small-town grit. Simon, my golden boy brother, the straight arrow Air Dad had molded in his image, locked in a moment that mirrored my own hidden truths. But when his eyes snapped open and met mine, panic twisted into rage. He grabbed Dad's old Remington from the workbench, fired into the dirt at my feet to startle me back, then leveled it at the sky as if to summon judgment. Dad burst in seconds later, his face a mask of Puritan fury, the kind forged in the Bible Belt fires of rural Kansas. He'd always whispered prayers against that devil's curse whenever I dared mention a guy's name in passing, but seeing it raw on Simon, that was the breaking point. "Filth," he spat, not at them but at me, for witnessing, for existing as the family's original sin. Simon stammered apologies. Tommy bolted like a spooked colt, and Dad turned on me with eyes like chipped flint. "You brought this on us, Jordan. Your kind poisons everything. Simon's the future. You're done." I didn't fight it. Not then. The words lodged in my throat like buckshot, and I just nodded, grabbing my bag and walking out into the sweltering heat, the gravel crunching under my boots like bones giving way. Behind me, Dad's voice boomed. "The business is Simon's now. All of it. Harlan feed and supply, every silo, every contract, every goddamn dollar. Prove you're a man, boy, or stay gone." Simon didn't say a word, didn't chase me, didn't even look sorry. That silence? It was the real bullet. I drove east on I-70, the flatlands blurring into a golden smear, until the skyscrapers of Chicago swallowed me whole. The Windy City didn't care about Kansas dirt under your nails or the ache of a father's rejection. It was a place of reinvention, where queers like me could breathe without the weight of harvest moons and homespun hypocrisy. I crashed on a friend's couch in Wicker Park, a lanky artist named Alex who painted murals of defiant lovers under neon signs. "Family's just a story we tell ourselves," he said that first night, handing me a beer as I spilled the whole ugly tale. "Write your own, Jord. Make it epic." And so I did. By day, I slung lattes at a hipster cafe on Division Street, the steam from espresso machines drowning out the echo of that shotgun. By night, I audited classes at the community college, devouring business texts like they were revenge manifestos. Turns out, Dad's legacy had wired something fierce in me. A head for numbers, a knack for turning seed into surplus. I networked at queer mixers in Boys Town, where rainbow flags snapped like battle banners, and landed an internship at a boutique consulting firm downtown. That's where I met Elias. He was the firm's wunderkind, a sharp-dressed Puerto Rican transplant from New York with eyes like polished obsidian and a laugh that cut through boardroom tension like a hot knife. "Jordan Harlan," he said on my first day, glancing at my resume with a smirk. "Sounds like a country song waiting to be sung. What's the hook?" I told him the abridged version over rooftop tacos that lunch, omitting the barn, the gun, just the broad strokes of disinheritance. He didn't pry. Instead, he leaned in, his cologne a subtle spice of cardamom and ambition, and said, "Hooks are for fishermen. You're a director now. Let's make a blockbuster." Elias became my anchor in that concrete jungle. We'd debrief cases over craft IPAs at the hideout, dissecting supply chain snarls as if they were plot twists in a noir thriller. One evening, after a brutal pitch to a logistics giant, he walked me to the L platform, the L train rattling overhead like distant thunder. "You're holding back, Harlan," he murmured, his hand brushing mine in the crowd. "Accidental, maybe, but electric. That Kansas ghost? Let it ride the rails out of town." I turned, and there it was. The question in his gaze, the invitation hanging soft as summer fog. I kissed him right there under the fluorescent buzz, tasting salt and possibility. It wasn't fireworks. It was a quiet ignition, the kind that warms you from the inside out. Months blurred into a rhythm. Elias and me, building something real amid the firm's frenetic pulse. We moved in together into a third-floor walk-up in Logan Square, walls lined with his abstract prints and my dog-eared ledgers from home. I'd cook Midwestern comfort, pot roast simmering with rosemary, while he blasted Bad Bunny, our laughter weaving through the steam. "You're my plot twist," he'd whisper in the dark, fingers tracing the scars of old wounds I didn't know I carried. Love, I learned, wasn't the grand gestures of Hollywood. It was the steady hand on your back during a midnight panic attack, the shared silence when words failed. But ghosts don't fade easy. 2 years in, a letter arrived, crisp envelope, Harlan feed and supply letterhead. Dad's looping script like a noose. "Troubles brewing, son. Simon's in over his head. Come home. Fix this." "No apology." No, I was wrong. Just a command, wrapped in the presumption that blood still bound me tighter than betrayal. I crumpled it, but Elias smoothed it out that night, his voice gentle steel. "You don't owe them shit, Jord. But if it's closure you need, go. I'll hold the fort." His trust was a lifeline, but doubt gnawed. What if saving them meant losing us? I flew into Wichita on a red-eye, the prairie unfolding below like a faded quilt. The rental car hummed north on Highway 81, past silos standing sentinel against the endless sky, until the Harlan gates loomed, rusted now, weeds clawing at the posts. The house was the same. Wraparound porch sagging under Virginia creeper. The swing where Mom used to hum gospel tunes before cancer claimed her a decade back. Dad met me on the steps, older, gaunt, his flannel hanging loose on shoulders that once carried the world. "Jordan," he said, voice gravel rough. "No hug." Just a nod toward the office. "Books are in there. See for yourself." Simon was absent. "Off chasing investors," Dad muttered, but the ledgers painted a grim portrait. Embezzlement, mostly. Falsified invoices, siphoned funds to cover gambling debts in Vegas. Simon, the prodigal heir, had gambled the family fortune on poker tables and bad loans. All while Dad turned a blind eye, clinging to the myth of his straight son's perfection. "He'll come around," Dad insisted, but his eyes betrayed the lie. The business teetered on bankruptcy, suppliers circling like vultures, the community, farmers who'd trusted us for generations, facing ruin without our feed contracts. I dove in, fueled by a cocktail of fury and nostalgia. Days bled into nights in that musty office, poring over spreadsheets by lamplight, renegotiating with creditors over crackling phone lines. Dad hovered, offering coffee and clipped advice, but the air crackled with unspoken barbs. One evening, as thunder rumbled distant, he finally cracked. "I pushed you away to protect Simon. Thought if I made him the man I couldn't make you, it'd right the wrongs." Protect? From what? Loving who he loved. The irony burned, but I swallowed it, focusing on the fix. A leaner operation, pivoting to organic feeds for the eco-conscious co-ops springing up in Lawrence. Then Simon slunk back, reeking of bourbon and bravado, 2 days before the creditor's deadline. He cornered me in the barn, the same damn barn, his face a roadmap of regret and resentment. "You always were the smart one, little bro. But Dad chose me." "Me?" His voice pitched high, defensive, the straight mask slipping to reveal the scared kid I'd shielded from Dad's rages. I saw it then. The betrayal wasn't just Dad's. Simon had leaned into it, using his normalcy as a shield while his own secrets festered. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he confessed, slumping against a stall. "Tommy, it was a mistake. But you You're the one who left. Left. I laughed, bitter as burnt coffee. You fired a gun to run me off, see? And Dad handed you the keys like it erased the truth. We stood there, inches apart, the air thick with the ghosts of that day. For a heartbeat, I saw the brother I'd idolized, the one who'd shared comic books under the covers, taught me to drive stick on back roads. But trust, once shattered, doesn't glue back neat. Elias called that night, his voice a bomb across the miles. How's the prodigal playing out? I told him everything, the ledgers, the lies, Simon's half apology. Come home, Jord. This isn't your circus anymore. But as lightning forked the sky, illuminating the Harlan sign flickering in the wind, I realized it was not for them, for me, to reclaim the pieces they'd scattered. The climax hit like a Kansas twister. Creditor meeting in the co-op hall downtown. Fluorescent lights buzzing over folding tables laden with donuts and dread. Dad and Simon flanked me, a mismatched trinity, as I pitched the turnaround. Slimmed costs, new markets, a Harlan 2.0 rooted in sustainability. The room hung on my words, farmers in Carhartt jackets nodding slow, their faces etched with the desperation of empty silos. Then the door banged open. Tommy Ruiz, bold as brass, flanked by a private investigator with a manila folder thick as a Bible. Simon Harlan's been cooking the books, Tommy announced, voice steady, eyes locked on my brother. Not just debts, kickbacks from a rival supplier. He's been selling us out for months. Gasps rippled like wind through wheat. Simon bolted up, chair scraping, face ashen. Lies. That faggot's got an axe to grind. The slur landed like a slap, echoing the barn's poison, and Dad flinched, but didn't defend. The folder spilled open. Emails, wire transfers, Simon's signature damning as Judas. Chaos erupted, shouts, accusations, the metallic clink of handcuffs as the sheriff materialized. Simon lunged at Tommy, fists flying, and I dove in, tackling him to the linoleum in a tangle of limbs and betrayal. Enough! I roared, pinning him down, our breaths mingling hot and ragged. This ends now, see, for all of us. He went limp beneath me, sobs racking his frame, the straight facade crumbling into the queer truth we'd both buried. Dad watched, silent, as deputies hauled Simon away, the weight of his favoritism crashing down like the hall's sagging rafters. In the aftermath, as rain lashed the windows, Dad pulled me aside on the porch. I was wrong, Jordan. About you. About everything. His hand trembled on my shoulder, the first touch since that shotgun day. No grand redemption, just a father's fractured humility, the kind earned in the quiet hours of regret. Save it. For your mother. For you. I nodded, throat tight, the storm mirroring the one inside. Elias arrived the next dawn, rental car cutting through the downpour, wrapping me in his coat like a shield. My hero, he murmured, kissing my temple as we watched the fields awaken, washed clean. We stayed through the harvest, Elias and me, turning Harlan feed into a hybrid of heartland grit and urban innovation. Simon wrote from county lockup, letters scrawled in pencil. Apologies, confessions, a tentative bridge over the chasm. Dad softened, sharing stories of Mom's fierce love, the unspoken queerness in our bloodline he'd ignored. It wasn't fairy tale neat. Wounds scar, trust rebuilds slow. But in those amber afternoons, threshers humming like hymns, I found the humanism Dad had tried to beat out of me. Forgiveness not as weakness, but as the strongest crop we could sow. Elias and I drove back to Chicago come November, the plains dusted in first frost, a Harlan contract in my briefcase. My name on it, finally. What's next, director? He asked, hand on my knee as the miles unspooled. I smiled, the road ahead curving like possibility. The sequel, with you as co-star. And in that moment, under a sky vast as redemption, I knew. Family wasn't blood or business. It was the loves we chose, the ones that pulled us from the wreckage, whole. The winter after the co-op showdown settled over Chicago like a heavy wool blanket, muffling the city's pulse but not the questions gnawing at my edges. Elias and I had slipped back into our Logan Square routine. Him buried in client decks, me commuting to Harlan Feed's satellite office in the Loop, bridging Kansas prairies with urban supply chains. But Simon's letters arrived like clockwork, postmarked from the Leavenworth County Jail, each one a raw nerve exposed. "I didn't hate you, Jord." One read, the paper creased from frantic rereads. "I hated the mirror you held up. Dad's expectations. They twisted me into something ugly." I showed Elias over takeout pad thai, his brow furrowing as he traced the loops of Simon's script. "He's reaching, babe. But reaching doesn't mean grabbing hold." Wise as ever, but his words couldn't staunch the bleed of old loyalties. Dad called weakly now, his voice less gravel, more riverbed, smoothed by time and solitude. The business stabilized under my remote stewardship, suppliers returning like wary deer to a salt lick, but the house echoed empty without Simon's bluster or my absence's shadow. "Your mother's birthday next month," he'd say, casual as checking the weather. "Pot roast like she liked?" It was code for reconciliation, the kind stitched from shared recipes and sidelong glances. Elias encouraged the trip. Go. Close the loop. But tensions simmered between us, unspoken. My divided heart pulled me westward, and though he'd never say it, I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes, that Kansas might reclaim me whole. Spring thaw brought the trial, a circus in the county courthouse with its peeling paint and ceiling fans wheezing like asthmatic ghosts. I flew in solo, Elias tied up with a merger pitch, the cabin pressure mirroring the knot in my gut. Dad waited in the parking lot, truck idling, a thermos of black coffee steaming between us like a peace offering. "Heard from the prosecutor," he grunted as we bumped toward town. "Plea deal. Embezzlement down to misdemeanor if he testifies against that rival outfit. No mention of the betrayal's queer underbelly, just business as always." But when we pulled up to the steps, Simon emerged from a side door, shackled and shorn, his once broad shoulders hunched under an ill-fitting suit. Our eyes met through the chain-link fence, and for a split second, I saw the boy who'd bandaged my knee after a barbed wire tumble, not the man who'd fired that gun. The courtroom smelled of polished oak and stale regret, locals packed in the pews like a Sunday congregation awaiting sermon. Simon's testimony spilled out in fits, voice cracking on the details of rigged bids. The rival's shadowy rep from Omaha promising quick cash for insider tips. Tommy sat in the back row, anonymous in a ball cap, his presence a silent indictment. When the judge recessed, Simon shuffled over, cuffs clinking like wind chimes in a gale. "You came," he whispered, eyes red-rimmed. "Thought you'd wash your hands." I gripped the partition, wood biting my palms. "Blood's thicker than bleach, see. But don't mistake duty for absolution." He nodded, a ghost of a smile. "Tell me about him, Elias. Dad says he's solid." We talked then, halting, about Chicago's brutal winters, Elias's killer empanadas, the way love could anchor you when family faltered. It was the first crack in the ice, fragile but real. Dad and I drove home in silence, broken only by AM radio static, the fields greening under tentative sun. That night, over pot roast, my version with a dash of Elias's adobo, he finally broached the unspoken. "I saw it in you first, Jordan. The difference. Thought I could pray it out, make you like Simon. Straight. Strong." His fork trembled, gravy pooling untouched. "But strength ain't in who you bed. It's in showing up when the silo burns." Tears tracked his weathered cheeks, the admission a dam breaking after years of drought. I reached across the table, our hands clasping rough and real, the first bridge since the barn. "You showed up now, Dad. That's enough." Elias joined me for Mom's birthday, a weekend pilgrimage under skies blue as her favorite Delft plates. He charmed Dad with tales of Bronx bodegas and boardroom battles, their laughter rumbling like distant combines over after-dinner scotch. Simon couldn't make it, parole hearing pending, but he sent a card, scribbled front and back, "To the family that stuck. Love, your screw-up brother." We scattered her ashes by the creek that evening, Elias's arm around my waist, Dad reciting psalms with a hitch in his throat. As fireflies blinked to life, Elias squeezed my hand. This place. It's got hooks in you, huh? I leaned into him, the waters murmur a lullaby. Yeah, but you're my line. Back in Chicago, the firm buzzed with opportunity. A major client, Agritech Solutions, sniffing around for a Midwest pivot. Elias and I led the charge, our synergy a quiet force. His charisma sealing deals, my grit mapping the logistics. Late nights in the conference room, city lights winking below. We'd steal kisses between projections, the thrill of partnership bleeding into passion. But success amplified the pull, Dad emailing updates on the organic lines boom, Simon's letters evolving from confession to camaraderie, hints of a post-prison plan. Miss the fields, he'd write, but more miss us. The betrayal's echo resurfaced in June, a heatwave haze over the lakefront. Tommy called out of the blue, voice tight, Simon's out next month. Word is, he's gunning for the business. Says it's his birthright, plea deal or no. My blood chilled, the old wound suppurating. Elias found me pacing our balcony, Lake Michigan churning gray. Talk to me, Jord. I did, spilling the fresh venom, the fear that redemption was just another mask. He pulled me close, heartbeat steady against mine. Then fight for it. Not with fists, with everything you've built. Us included. I confronted Simon via video call from a Leavenworth visitor's booth. His face pixelated but earnest on the screen. Heard the rumors. I started voice level. You planning a coup? He leaned in, forehead creasing. Nah, man. That's the old me, scared, scrambling. Parole boards got conditions. Community service at the co-op. Figured. Maybe we team up? Harlan 3.0. Brothers at the helm. Skepticism warred with hope, but his eyes held no shotgun glare. Just a plea mirroring Dad's that rainy night. Prove it, see. Come to Chicago first. Meet Elias. See the life I carved without you. He arrived on a Greyhound 2 weeks later, duffel slung over shoulder, looking like a fish flopping on urban concrete. Elias cooked a welcome feast. Eraz congandles and Kansas brisket fusion, while I watched from the kitchen, nerves jangling. Simon thawed slow, peppering Elias with questions about the firm, admitting his own fumbling college days at K-State. By dessert, they were swapping stories, Simon's laugh rusty but genuine. You got a good one here, Jord, he said later, on the fire escape under sodium glow. Don't let my mess up revoke your ticket. I clapped his back, the gesture bridging years. We're rewriting the script, bro, together. Summer peaked in a whirlwind. Simon interning at the firm, his street-smart hustle meshing with my analytics. Dad visiting for pride, marching tentatively in the parade with a rainbow pin Elias pinned on his lapel, his gruff, wouldn't miss it for the world, masking misty eyes. Romance deepened too. Elias and I stealing weekends in Door County, cherry orchards blushing pink, where he'd propose under a pergola heavy with blooms. Ring simple silver etched with co-stars forever. Yes was my vow, whispered against his neck as waves lapped the shore. But drama, that American staple, doesn't bow out easy. Fall brought the rivals' retaliation. A smear campaign in AG trade rags. Anonymous tips fingering Harlan feed in Simon's old scandals. Creditors jittered, stocks dipped, and Dad called in a panic. They're circling again, son, like sharks in the Arkansas. Elias and I flew out, Simon meeting us at the gate, face set like flint. The four of us, family forged anew, barricaded in the office, strategizing through the night. Dawn broke with a counterstrike. Oppressor exposing the rival's dirt, whistleblowers stepping forward, our united front a bulwark. As leaves turned crimson, Elias and I stood on the porch, wedding bands glinting in the low sun, Simon and Dad visible through the window, poring over maps. We did it, Elias murmured, nuzzling my ear. Saved the empire, and each other. I turned, kissing him slow, the Kansas wind carrying whispers of harvest. Betrayal had been the storm, but love, the steady, chosen kind, was the rainbow arching after. The wedding unfolded like a heartfelt indie flick, intimate, unpretentious, set against the amber waves of the Harlan Fields in late October, when the air crisped with the promise of frost and forgiveness. Elias and I exchanged vows under a willow by the creek, Mom's scattering spot, with Dad officiating in a rare concession to his Baptist roots, his voice steady as he bound us with words borrowed from Corinthians. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things. Simon stood best man, dapper in a tweed vest, his parole anklet traded for a boutonniere, eyes shining as he toasted. To Jordan, brother, survivor, the one who pulled us from the brink. And Elias, the plot twist we all needed. Laughter rippled through the 50 guests. Farmers in Sunday best, Chicago colleagues toasting with craft ciders, Tommy even showing up with a quiet nod of truce. Elias's lips met mine in a kiss that tasted of cider and eternity, the crowd erupting in cheers that drowned the distant hum of combines. But beneath the joy, undercurrents swirled. Dad's hesitant dance with a widow from the co-op, Simon's sidelong glances at a handsome vet tech helping with the buffet. Whispers of new beginnings, fragile as autumn leaves. That night, as stars pricked the velvet sky, Elias and I slipped away to the old treehouse, our childhood perch, now strung with fairy lights. Married on Harlan soil, he mused, tracing my jaw. Feels like full circle. I pulled him close, the wood creaking under us. It's not the end, amor. Just the sequel's opening credits. Winter tested the frame we'd built. Simon relocated to Chicago full-time, crashing on our couch until he landed a junior role at Agritech, his embezzlement rap fading into resume footnotes. But old habits die hard. One blizzard night, he confessed over hot toddies. Seeing you too, the stirring shit up, Jord. That part of me I buried. Vulnerability hung heavy, and I shared my own early stumbles, the furtive hookups in college dorms, the fear of Dad's shadow. It's a journey, see? No straight lines. Elias, ever the mediator, suggested therapy. Group sessions at a queer center in Uptown, where Simon found brothers in arms, literally and figuratively. Dad's arc bent too, slow as a river carving canyon. He drove up for Thanksgiving, truck bed laden with smoked hams and a surprise. Mom's hope chest, brimming with letters and photos I'd never seen. One yellowed snapshot showed Dad young, arms slung around a college buddy, their grins too intimate for bromance. We were kids, he admitted over pie, voice low. Explored. Then life straightened the path. The revelation landed soft, a missing puzzle piece, humanizing the tyrant I'd mythologized. You raised two sons who chose their truths, I said, clinking glasses. That's legacy enough. Spring bloomed with expansion. Harlan Feed launching a co-op app, Elias's tech-savvy fusing with Simon's fieldwork grit, Dad consulting from afar with folksy wisdom. Romance evolved too. Elias and I navigated the domestic dance, joint taxes, weekend hikes in the Indiana dunes, quiet nights debating baby books, surrogacy whispers, a future family pieced from love's mosaic. But conflict, that dramatic engine, revved up in May. A corporate raider from the rival firm, sensing weakness in our growth spurt, launched a hostile bid. Boardrooms turned battlegrounds, whispers of sabotage echoing Simon's past sins. The climax crested in a sweltering Wichita summit, all of us converging like arrows to a bullseye. Dad paced the hotel lobby, Simon chain-smoking outside. Elias and I huddled over laptops in the cafe, caffeine our armor. They've got dirt, Elias warned. Scrolling encrypted emails leaked to the press. Twisted narratives painting Simon's parole as instability, Harlan as a house of cards. Dad stormed in, face thunderous. This ends today. No more running. We marched into the Raiders' glass tower, a monolith of Midwest ambition, and laid it bare. Financials ironclad, community testimonials pouring in via video, Simon stepping forward with a raw monologue on redemption. I fell hard once, he said, voice echoing off chrome. But family? That's the net that catches you. The Raider folded by cocktail hour, buyout terms generous. Our unity the unassailable force. Champagne flowed in the hotel bar, toasts overlapping like harmonies. Dad's gruff, proud of you boys. Simon's sly wink at a cute waiter, Elias's hand in mine, grounding. But as night deepened, Simon pulled me aside on the balcony, city lights sprawling below. That gun in the barn. I aimed at the ground, but I meant it for us. To silence the noise inside. Tears streaked his face, and I hugged him fierce. The brother bond mended in mutual scars. We silenced it together, see. Now live loud. Back home. Summer unfurled lazy and lush. Elias and I honeymooned in the Smokies, cabins and campfires, his head on my chest under canopy stars. What's the endgame, Harlan? He asked one dawn, mist curling like smoke signals. I thought of the shotgun echo, the ledger's redemption, the loves that layered like sedimentary rock. No end, I replied. Just chapters. With plot twists we write hand in hand. Fall circled back to the fields for harvest. The four of us, Dad, Simon, Elias, me. Standing amid the sheaves, combines roaring triumph. A surrogate match lit up our phones mid-reap. A baby boy due spring, roots in our chosen soil. Dad clapped Simon's shoulder, eyes twinkling. Uncle C, think you can handle midnight feeds? Simon grinned, free and fierce. With this crew, bring it. As snow dusted the silos come December, Elias and I curled on the porch swing. Our Chicago perch shipped west for holidays. Watching flakes dance like confetti. Betrayal's shadow lingered, a faint watermark, but humanism prevailed. The grace in showing up, the romance in persistence, the drama in daring to love beyond blood's brittle script. Dad joined us with cocoa, Simon trailing with guitar, strumming a ragged Sweet Home Alabama that dissolved into laughter. Family, I realized, wasn't inherited, it was harvested one resilient stalk at a time. In the end, the business thrived, not as empire, but as legacy. Sustainable, inclusive, a beacon for small-town queers charting their own maps. Simon found his rhythm, a partner in that vet tech, their quiet dates a counterpoint to my whirlwind with Elias. Dad mellowed into grandfather-to-be, his prayers now pleas for joy. And me? I narrated it all, first-person witness to the mess and magic. The shotguns blasted distant thunder, superseded by the heartbeat of new life quickening within our circle. That's the American story. Flawed, fierce, forever unfolding. Hooks and all.